bright screen. That's the wrong button. That's the right button. I don't have a really bright screen behind me. Just white. I just have my Gmail open so I can look at screenshots later. It's bright. It's a live stream. It's a live stream. It's a live stream. It's a live stream. I sit. It's spooky. Here's a kitten. See, now you're gonna like the live stream because it's cats. Always gotta have the cats in the live stream. That's what the people like. They don't come for me. They come to see the kitties in live streams and the random cat videos that I post. I do like sometimes people are like, dude, get a life. Every single one of your posts is about religion and Christianity and God's and whatnot. No, sometimes I post about my cats. Sometimes I post about my cats. But most of them, yes, you are correct. It's a live stream. I always have to hype myself up, like, for a few minutes before every live stream, because I am a very shy, introverted person. I like doing this, but I'm just, like, terrified. This is an introvert activity that I'm engaging in. That's weird. Why is the live stream so high quality? Because he has ADHDs. That's actually very funny and true. not the quality part, but yes, all the ADHD. It's so much fun. So much fun. But for this live stream, something that's been on my mind lately, because people talk about, hi mama, people talk about what's the point? And I've brought this up in a couple of other live streams of, what's the point of life if there's no God? And I've brought up, well, no God, probably no afterlife, so like this is the only life that we get. Everything matters in this life, or we make our own points to matter. Whatever matters in life to us is what matters to us. You can find your own meaning, all of that. But I want to look at it from a different perspective, because Christianity, if it's true, there are really only two possibilities: heaven or hell. And hell is usually pretty well agreed upon. It's eternal suffering, it's torment, it's awful, whatever. Heaven, there's a few different ideas of heaven that have been floating around. And one of the more popular ones is worshiping God. That's kind of about it. Like, you're so obsessed with worshiping God. I'm not obsessed. I'm not trying to use mean words, but you're in God's presence, and we were created to serve Him and worship Him and whatnot. So it's just bowing down to worship Him for eternity. Just losing your identity, all that matters. You can't focus on anything else because He's so amazing, so you just focus on Him. If any of your loved ones went to hell, He wiped them from your memory so you wouldn't be sad that they were gone. It's just worshiping God, praising God for eternity, or eternal punishment. I'm going to be completely honest with you. In my I'll admit, subjective opinion, if that is the case, if those are the only two possibilities, life is pointless. If that's it, if that is it, mindless worship or eternal torture, if those are the only two possibilities, if that's all of this was made for, all of the cosmos, all the universe, life, everything, if that's it, it's a waste. There is no point. Life is pointless, I think. If that's it, if that's all we're working for, if that's all we're getting at the end of this life is one of those two things, wow. It's just, wow. And not to mention, if the Christian God is real, the Bible's full of some messed up stuff about the Christian God. So it's like that's who we get. That's who we get. That's the supreme ruler who drowns an entire world because he doesn't like them. It's just not. It's not good. It's not a happy outcome at all, in my opinion. And it's subjective, like whatever. But it's no. I because it's interesting because people say, well, your life is pointless if you're an atheist. I found great meaning in life without God, and if the Christian God is real, which I mostly hear this argument from Christians, because I mostly engage with Christians, I mostly talk about Christianity. If the Christian God is real and that's what we're looking at, pointless. That takes the point. That just the entire universe at one big throwaway. Shower thought, hell is way too hot to live in because it's fire. That means heaven is too cold to live in because clouds known to be cold. That's definitely a shower thought, and I'm definitely into it. There's definitely some thoughts to be had there. Definitely. If you have free will in heaven, it's just a matter of time before you do something bad and get kicked into hell. Yeah. I used to tell myself that especially when I would see people pass away who were like amazing, godly people. There was this one guy, a family friend of my wife's, really cool guy. Did some stuff in his life, doesn't have the best track record. He finally went to church, found God, turned his life around. He got baptized, and he's like, no one can throw that stuff I did in the past in my face anymore because I'm born new. I think a few weeks later, he died in a motorcycle accident. Like, why? Why? Because I still believed in God at that point. It's like, why? Why, God? Why? Why did you feel that was necessary? He just got his life back on track. And I used to tell myself, and maybe this is me defending Christianity, I used to tell myself that this life has many purposes, and that one of them is a trial. Because Lucifer was in heaven, and he rebelled with a third of the angels, and he got cast out. That's got to be awful. For like all the love that's in heaven and whatnot, that's got to be awful. It's got to be something that God just does not want to happen again. So it would make sense to me that God would set up Earth the way it is, and with some of the good and bad, as a trial to make sure that nobody gets beyond those gates that he's going to have to kick out again. To make sure, even with free will, that nobody who gets to heaven is going to have to get kicked out. That's what I would tell myself. Because that's also how I rationalized this individual passing away. After all that, he found God. He's done. He passed the test, Too bad, it kind of sounds pretty. Too bad there's no real reason to believe any of that, but whatever. You always got to come ruin it, It's just like, yeah, but like, because you could spin a million pretty stories about where our loved ones go when they're gone, where we go, about this thing looking out for us, this thing looking out for us. But if there's just no reason to believe in it, there's just no reason to believe in it. My main issue with Christianity is that it doesn't favor good people or bad people. A baby defiling killer would go to heaven just by saying some words, but an innocent kid would go to hell if they don't. Yeah. All sins being weighted the same is horrible. Yeah. I once brought this up back when I used to speak out against Christianity on my personal Facebook page to my poor, defenseless Christian friends and family members. I would point out Jeffrey Dahmer, and that's a classic one that people like to point out. All the stuff that he did, but he found Christ at the end of his life, and he's probably in heaven. I've never done any of that terrible stuff that Jeffrey Dahmer did, but I don't believe in God. And even if I did believe, I wouldn't follow the Christian God. So I go to hell, but he doesn't. And somebody came in to the comments and they're like, I understand it's hard to understand that level of forgiveness, but that's how God is. He'll forgive you of whatever if you just turn him. No, see, I get that. I have issues with it, but we'll set that aside for a second. I get that. You can do the most horrible things and come to him at the end and like get forgiveness and all this. But I never did those things. I'm not hurting people. I'm gonna go to hell just for not believing and following God. That's it. It's like, if you want to forgive people, that's great. But I haven't done nearly as many terrible things as Jeffrey Dahmer did. So like, if he can be forgiven by coming to him, why am I being punished just for not coming to you, Like, obviously, if I came to God, I'd be forgiven of everything, but no, I'm not going to do that. Hello. I think you get a nicer mansion in heaven if you do good. there are some, I started that saying that there are different versions of heaven, because some, the streets paved with gold, the trees full of fruit, whatever's, the big city in the sky, streets, whatever. Uh, kingdom, new kingdom. And I think that'd be a little bit more fun, They're definitely more enjoyable versions of heaven that, well, let's play with that. If it is like an enjoyable, just eternal bliss and free will, running around with your loved ones, having fun, all that stuff, does that give a point to life? Maybe it does. I also, but I also again wouldn't want to follow the Christian God to get that. You read the Bible and all the terrible things that God does in the Bible and condones in the Bible. You follow that God, and that's how you get all that reward. That's I always say I wouldn't follow the Christian God no matter what he offers me or threatens me with. Just not for me. Not for me. It's, I don't know. I just don't know. But it's for a lot of people. A lot of people like it. Read the Quran. I have. But that's just, I don't know. I don't know. It's not worth it to me. It really just isn't. Matter changing into different forms from processes. What about that? Matter changing into different forms from processes. What about that? I'm incredibly stupid. You gotta hold my hand through some things. If you say a sentence, it's just gonna go over my head. You gotta walk me through it. I did get a comment, or I actually have some comments prepared that I screenshot specifically for live streams. Oh, continuing another comment. Okay, I'm sorry. I see. Because I actually have been preparing screenshots so that I have some kind of structure in my live streams, because I need to talk about something for the duration of the live stream to be interesting. I'm gonna be here for an hour. I try to limit pauses as many times as possible, but this is an interesting one. We get born into this life and get familiar with it so much that nothing amazes us anymore. Take a step back and look at life outside the box. I like this. I do. And they're trying to, they're atheists trying to be like, it's so amazing. Yeah, you're used to seeing this stuff every day, but like, no, you actually need to look at how amazing this stuff is. Look outside the box. And I agree. I love stepping outside the box and looking at things from a different perspective and questioning things, and trying to break them down. How did that get here? Why does that do that? I love doing that. I don't like just saying that's a house that exists. But there's like 200,000 years of human history where we've learned how to build structures that eventually became modern houses. And why, and why the frame in a certain way. There's a lot of stuff. Trees, how the trees get evolved to get here. I definitely agree with this. I don't think, because it just comes down to the intelligent design. It's so amazing. How could it not be a god? And that's God of the Gaps, and I don't really give much credibility to that. But it is worth mentioning, and it's a great thing to do. It's great advice, honestly. Don't just take life for granted and it exists. Whatever, that's a thing. I see it every day. No, how did the thing get there? It's like this processes. There's cool stuff. There's cool science and stuff that goes into this, and human history that goes into this stuff, and evolutionary history. It's cool. Gotta look at stuff. You misunderstood God. God did not do terrible things in the Bible. The humans did. God does not take pleasure in people dying and going to hell. You have not the truth of the Christian God. The God, Drew, thank you for being here and doing what you do. Thank you for being here and supporting me. Comments like that keep me going. most of the comments I get, live streams usually go pretty well, but most of the comments I get are like shitting on, which is fair. You know, I speak out against something that people are very passionate about and people like, and people aren't going to react well to that. So I walk right into it. But it's nice. It's nice to get that support. It's nice to get like that comment or the direct message of like, "Hey man, love what you're doing. Keep up the good work." That keeps me going. That you don't know. I would have abandoned like my Instagram. I would have abandoned like a year ago. Like because Instagram comments are just awful. It's where I get most of my content, so it wouldn't be smart. But like, you know, or you know, just other platforms that I don't particularly like posting on for a number of reasons. But there are people there who like my content, so it's like I'm doing it for you, hanging in there for you. God didn't do terrible things in the Bible. He kind of did. He struck down somebody for trying to catch the Ark of the Covenant when it was tipping. It was about to tip and fall over. He caught it, and God said, "No, die." He flooded the earth. He hardened Pharaoh's heart multiple times so that he wouldn't let the Israelites go, so he could continue to flex on Egypt to show the world how amazing he is. He helped Joshua and the Israelites lay siege to the promised land. I don't know if you've read like the couple of chapters in Joshua where they get there and they just burn this city, wipe out these people, men, women, children, livestock, babies, everything that breathes, just like it's like 2 chapters of just plowing through the promised land, and it's kind of terrifying. God says it's okay to beat your slaves so long as they don't die within a couple of days, but if they die after a couple of days, it's fine because they're your property anyway. He created Adam and Eve, did not give them the knowledge of good and evil, put that knowledge in a fruit and said don't eat that fruit. But not having the knowledge of good and evil, they didn't know right from wrong, that they should obey and listen to this God. Didn't understand consequences and right and wrong and stuff. And then God puts a great tempter in the garden with his naive new creation to tempt them. And God, this omni there. I forget all of the omni words. The omnipresent. This omnipresent God either ignores them or walks away and isn't omnipresent while this tempter is tempting his creation. And of course, they're going to eat the fruit because they didn't have the knowledge of good and evil that would inform their decisions to not eat the fruit. So they ate it, and then God cursed humanity forever because of it. It's like, what do you want, man? What do you want? He also creates us and just sets us on a conveyor belt immediately going to hell. It's like, I can save you. You're going along, you're getting closer. I can save you. I can save you. I can grab you. You just have to bow down and worship me. It's, and that's just a few things. I could keep going, but like, yeah. Are we reading the same religious text? Yeah. And the Bible does have contradictions. This is true. It's just a mess. It's just a mess. People who leave Christ are not happy. Backsliding isn't good. Leaving a God-shaped void and trying to fill it with something else will leave them unhappy in the end. This is a common thing that I hear from Christians. You have a God-shaped hole that you're trying to fill with this, that. No, I don't. It doesn't exist. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Maybe some people are looking for an extra something, and maybe religion can fill that hole, because religion does fill that hole for a lot of people. You know, people like religion. There's a reason there's so many different religions that have survived throughout human history. You know, it's people like it, and it can fill that hole, but it's not. I would not say it's accurate to say that we have a God-shaped hole that needs to be filled that only God can fill. That's just not true. Just not true. Do I think Christianity or Islam is more flawed? That's a fantastic question. I haven't studied Islam too much, so I honestly don't think I can give a proper response to that. I've studied Islam. I've read the Quran. and I've listened to some, Islamic preachers and whatnot, but I don't think I have the knowledge to properly answer that question. I'm going to be honest with you. Neither of them are great. The Abrahamic religions in general are pretty awful, but yeah. Islam does have a deity and not a trinity. This is true. It's more like you're on your way to hell, let me help you. Like if you're drowning in a pool and a lifeguard says, here, let me help you. Will you take the hand? Why did you throw me in the pool if I can't swim? Why am I drowning in the first place? That's the question. Why am I on the conveyor belt? Why is love me or I'll torture you forever our only two options? It's love me or follow me, or I'm just going to leave you on this conveyor belt that I just sat you on. It's a meme that I've seen floating around. It's Jesus knocking on a door. It's like, open the door. Why? So I can save you. From what? From what I'm going to do to you if you don't open the door. That's what it is. That's what it is. And it's mildly terrifying. What else? Screen transfer? I'm not going to have enough screenshots. That's fine. Yes, there are many different gods, but there's only one righteous one. Okay. Okay. If you look at a book of a specific god, and it lays out righteousness and paints this god as righteous, and you only focus on that book, you're gonna see that God is the only righteous God. You just are. If you ignore all of these other holy books, say all these other wonderful things about their gods and their followers and all this stuff, then yeah, you're gonna look at your God and say they're the only righteous God. But you have to understand it's the book written about that God, painting him in a righteous light. And I don't even think the book does that. I would not say the God of the Bible is not a good being. It's not a righteous being. It's just not. I don't think. No, the pool signifies sin, but because we sinned and our sin separated us from God, and because he loves us, did he come down to die for us? He loves us. Did he come down to die for us to pay our fine that we could not pay? Why does the whole sin system exist to begin with? Especially because it started with the whole Adam and Eve thing that I explained a little bit ago. I don't know if you heard that. But yeah, I also understand the whole Jesus, God, sacrificing himself to save the world from a system that he created. And then he didn't even state, it wasn't even a sacrifice. It wasn't a sacrifice. Because Jesus dies. Because he's God, eternal God, living up in heaven. Comes down for 30 years. What's 30 years to eternity? Has a very terrible couple days. I'm not saying, that Jesus' suffering wasn't terrible, but he's an all-powerful, infinite being. And then a few days later, he gets back up. He's walking around saying hi to everyone. He lets somebody stick their fingers in his wounds like it's a party trick, and then he goes back up to heaven. He's fine. It wasn't a sacrifice. So not only was it just an egotistical, look at me, look at how amazing I am, and just leverage, abusive. It's the abusive partner who you want to leave, but then you go into kidney failure, and you need a new kidney. So your abusive partner donates a kidney, and then goes, "I donated a kidney for you. Now you can never leave me." It's a lot. You have to understand why God did those things. The humans were doing terrible things, committing horrible atrocities against one another. So, like, children and babies died in these genocides. When God ordered genocides, when God committed and ordered genocides, children and babies died. And then you look at Egypt. God repeatedly hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he could continue to flex in Egypt. So that if he hadn't hardened Pharaoh's heart, who knows what would have happened? We'll never know. Because God said, no, I'm going to keep hardening his heart, so he won't let you go so that I can keep doing all this terrible stuff to the Egyptians. I don't know. If a watch is faulty, will you blame the watch or the watchmaker? If a device explodes, do you blame the appliance or the manufacturer? If the creation is bad, the creator is naturally bad. I agree. I understand why you feel this way. You feel I have cursed. I'm sorry. I understand why you feel this way. I have cursed God and Jesus in anger and hurt, and at the end, I realized the fault was in me. It was my flawed view and thinking that caused me to hurt. It makes me sad that you've fallen into a victim blaming mentality. Because that's another very awful thing about Christianity and the Christian God, is it makes its followers believe that they're nothing, that they're worthless, that they're the problem, that they're nothing without God, that they're dirty rags who don't even deserve God's love or anything like that. And it's sad, exceedingly sad. Could it just be that this God, who we don't even have any evidence for the existence of, he's just evil? He's just a terrible, terrible, terrible being, and it's not you. You know, it's that abusive relationship that Christianity puts its followers in with this God, and it's just sad to see. And I hope you can get out of that mindset someday. Really and truly do. Hurts my heart to see it. What screenshot was I on? I don't even know where I am. Where do I live? I've learned that God hardened Pharaoh's heart because he had decided for himself that he did not want to follow Jesus. God accepted and finalized his decision, and then he helped Israel out of Egypt. So because Pharaoh rejected this God, he's like, no, I'm going to make it hell right now. Like, no chance, no nothing. I'm going to continue to torment you. He could have just like maybe let the Israelites go. We'll never know because God didn't give him the chance. But he could have possibly just let the Israelites go. And then who knows what could have happened. Because he saw the wonders of God. There could have been a scenario where he saw how wonderful God was and turned to God and made friends with the Israelites. We'll never know because God said no. I'm gonna finalize your decision while you're on earth. That's not how earth works. It's never too late to turn back to God, to turn back to Christ, or to turn to him if you haven't even turned to him previously. It's never too late. That's how it's worked. That's how I've always understood it to work. But Pharaoh didn't get that chance. Because their lives don't actually change for the better. I assume atheists, people when they leave Christianity, don't actually change for the better. They just feel better because they can now sin and do whatever they want without guilt. Or things just get better without the strain and the abusiveness and the manipulation and the harm that comes with a lot of religions, including Christianity. Maybe it is just better. And maybe you should drop some of these tropes of, oh, atheists just want to sin. They just hate God. They just want to do whatever they want. It's not. But which I mean I understand. It's dismiss and discredit. If you dismiss and discredit and attack the character of your opponent enough, you don't actually have to engage with what they're saying, because who's going to listen to them? If you dismiss and discredit them so much and tear them down so much, who's going to listen to them? What I think is the biggest issue about Christianity, probably the abuser mentality. I don't know what I would say the worst is, but the abusive partner mentality is very much up there that I've explained. That you are nothing without me. Look what I did for you. I went to Catholic school, and we had a crucifix in every room, and we would regularly be told as kids, they'd point to that crucifix and say, see what he did for you. Let that be a reminder of what he did for you. And then you're just going to go and sin. It's guilt tripping. It's how could you, when he did all these things, how could you even think about turning away? It's manipulation. And it's disgusting. I remember from a young age, we would go through Stations of the Cross at school, where they would take us through the stations and they would go into detail. And some of these were like first and second graders. I don't know how young it was, but I'm pretty sure it was like first and second grade kids, younger than 10 kids. And they would go through like, Jesus, you were being scourged and chunks of meat and flesh were being ripped off your back, but you did it for us because you love us. It's like, don't tell that to a 9-year-old, you know? Don't tell that. It's like, even though you knew we would sin because we're just awful, you still love us, but we still sin anyway. It's gross. It's gross. And then, like, I think it was like in kindergarten or first grade, we got these styrofoam egg cartons, and they had little plastic Easter eggs. It's like, it was like, open one egg for like this many days leading up to Easter. And what was in these eggs? Well, this one has a nail in it, because Jesus was nailed to the cross. This one has like a frayed piece of rope to signify the scourge. There's a thorn from, to signify the crown of thorns. It's like, hey, I'm 6. This is dark, but it's just, it pounds it into your head. You are nothing. Look at what he did for you, and you didn't even deserve it. And then you're gonna go sin. You're gonna go have some. It's disgusting. Fear tactics, yeah. Fear tactics are a big part of Christianity. It would make more sense if the story says that Pharaoh made a personal decision to harden his heart in response to God. Yeah, it would. It just sounds like he wanted to free them, but God forced him not to. Yeah, that's kind of what it almost hints at, Of course, we don't really know what his decision would have been without, but yeah, it's something. And it would make a lot more sense. If God kept doing all this stuff and Pharaoh of his own free will kept giving God the finger, maybe that'd be different. I don't think the citizens of Egypt still deserved that. The men, women, children, and babies who were absolutely murdered in Egypt. I don't think they deserved that. But, just for the actions of their Pharaoh, but still, it makes it a little bit better. It helps, it helps a little bit. Yeah. God is not evil. I was suffering because of the choices I made. Had I obeyed, I would not have been in pain. Obeying God has never hurt me, but doing whatever I want hurts me every time. Leaving God was one of the best things that's ever happened. Leaving Christianity. Realizing there's no reason to even believe in this God, losing that belief, losing that faith, not following this messed up belief system. That has been the best thing for me. And the further I've gotten away from it, the better my mindset, the mentality has been. And my life's still doing better. I'm still struggling in the U.S., the economy right now, but better, just overall. We're just going to keep pushing. And a lot of people are like that. Yeah, there are people who their life got better their life got better when they went back to Christianity or came to Christianity. But there's also a lot of stories of people whose lives got better when they left Christianity, or when they found Islam, or when they found Judaism or Hinduism. It's not just your religion. Your religion isn't the only thing that makes people happy. And I understand you might have seen your life in a way, or your life may have been played out in a way where things tended to be better when you got closer to Christianity and Christian teachings, but that doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that it's actually there. Jesus saves, the rest of you failed your saving throws and take full damage. That's pretty funny, actually. It would also make more sense if God explained that he's the only God and other gods that are idolized are imaginary. Yeah, he doesn't really... It gets a little fuzzy in the Old Testament about that. It gets a little bit fuzzy throughout the Old Testament. Like, are you the only God? Or are you just the best God? The flood is the best proof against Christianity. Handed on a silver platter. No, I agree, yeah. There's no evidence of a global flood. There's no evidence to support the creation story. There's no evidence to support the mass exodus from Egypt, or even Israelite presence for a duration of time in Egypt. So, yeah. When you look at that stuff, there are stories in the Bible that just aren't true. but you can maybe give the benefit of the doubt and be like, some of it's true, some of it's fable, some of it's not, even though it should all be the inerrant word of God, so it should all be true. So if some of it's not true, then it should kind of wipe out the entire thing. But we can play with it. I don't like conversation enders. I don't like being like, this isn't this, so it's all just gone. This isn't it, but let's go ahead and talk about the rest of this. He talks about other gods as if they do exist and brags about being better than them. Yeah. I agree that is flawed, especially for second grade. I know lots of people who believe in Jesus but criticize homosexuals on the streets. Those people do not show Jesus' love. It's hypocrisy. Yeah. Stuff's messed up, and especially when you get humans involved. Yeah, with humans, everything gets messy. I mean, who knows? Maybe with the Bible, with the original copies of the text that we don't have, maybe it was something a lot better, and then humans got in. Because we know that the Bible has been edited. We know that certain books were chosen to put into the Bible. We know that certain passages were added and subtracted, and different things were shoehorned in, and this was changed to be this to harmonize better with this, because the whole text didn't really harmonize, and it kind of still doesn't, but it was heavily edited and translated and retranslated and interpreted, things changed, all that stuff. So maybe it was just, as soon as humans grabbed it, we just destroyed it. Maybe the creation story, the flood, the genocides, maybe none of that was in the original text. Maybe none of that was a part of this God's original plan, but just humans just plugged that in. Who really knows? Who really knows? They focus on religion over relationship, which just drives more people away from the faith. This is true, but the Bible is also the story of the God that you're trying to have a relationship with. And especially if you don't have some kind of religion, some kind of like anchor, some kind of grounding thing, you do get into territory where you might be just making things up. If you're just going off of what feels right, what you think is right, all this stuff, you could come out with your own different God. I did that during my deconstruction process. I ended up just a theist with this God that I loosely created from the Christian God, so it just doesn't quite work like that. I also focused more on the relationship than the religion, and I still ended up leaving, and it was still better for me. Sorry. I am a father, and whenever I do these lives, my daughter is asleep. So I always have a baby monitor to keep an ear out for her. Which, by the way, there may come a day where I just have to like end the live early. If she like gets up and starts crying, I'm a dad. I'm not gonna be like, sorry, love, I'm doing a live. No, I'd say bye, and then depending on how long I'd been, like if I had to stop the live now, I've been live for almost 40 minutes, I would probably just stop it. But if I was only live for like 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes, I'd probably just hop back on and just do another live stream, or whatever. But it's always a possibility. Always a possibility that I'll have to end the live to go be a dad. I also don't like this new one, because sometimes it just picks up, like we have a space heater in her room that just kicked on, so it started making noise, and that's why I turned it down. Usually I'd have baby monitors on the lowest volume, and it has a light that flashes, so I can see, if there's noise being made. This one doesn't have a flash. It's a new one. It doesn't have a flash. I don't like it. Sorry. Tangent. What are we talking about? Jesus. 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 Jesus is the way. Maybe it's Jesus. Yeah, the comment. I actually made a video about this recently. Uh, look around you. Everything you see is from God. If you don't understand it, read the Bible. After you read the Bible, have someone explain it to you because you won't understand it on your own. I don't like that because it's yeah. You read the Bible. It's kind of a mess. It's kind of a mess though. You know, you're not going to come to the right conclusions if you just read the Bible on your own. So go to a Christian and have them explain how you're actually supposed to read it, how you're supposed to interpret this text, how you're supposed to understand this. Yeah, it's gross. Just read the Bible for yourself. Okay, then there's also the part of I'm sorry, I can't read. Then there's also the part of testimony. I mean, you can find lots of those online. I have a testimony on my own as well. I've heard others speaking in tongues before. Testimonies, I have a testimony that I did in my last live stream of how I left Christianity. And, you know, mention how like my life's gotten better without Christianity. There are people with testimonies about coming to Allah in Islam, or, you know, uh, Vishnu in Hinduism. Forget, names are hard. There's so much to learn. This religious studies thing, there's so much information, and I'm not good with it, especially names. I'm not good with names. Anyway, there are other testimonies out there. In tongues, we've kind of like studied tongues, and it just kind of seems like gibberish. I even heard once, and you could look this up yourself. I heard someone say it, so you know it's true if I heard someone on the internet. But what am I saying? Words in a language have like root sounds, because words are just sounds put together in an order, just organized sounds. Um, and each language has like different like root sounds and some distinct root sounds. And when you listen to someone speaking tongues, sometimes you'll notice that they're using the root sounds from their language, from their first language, from the language that they speak. So it really, and we haven't been able to, you know, we've studied it, and we still haven't been able to decipher it, you know? So it's almost like everyone, when they're speaking in tongues, is saying something different. It's almost like everyone's just saying gibberish. Like, how do we tell the difference between tongues and just gibberish? That's the real thing. There's nothing that can make me believe that God isn't real. I used to say the same thing. I used to be convinced that God is real. I used to think I could never be convinced otherwise, and here I am. Just because you know how something works doesn't mean God wasn't behind it. Sure, you just gotta prove that He was. Not just gonna slap the God sticker on whatever we feel like. You gotta prove that He actually had a point. What? What do you think human consciousness is? That's a great question that I'm not qualified to answer. The brain doing brain stuff, and it's complex, it's complicated, it's weird, but it does not mean it's God. What are emotions of guilt and remorse from? These emotions serve no evolutionary purpose. I would disagree with that. We evolved with emotions like this to help us get along with one another, because when we get along with one another, life goes better for the society and the individuals in the society, including ourselves. Absolutely is an evolution. Anything that helps us work, anything that helps us play nice, spit, anything that helps us play nice with the other kids is an evolutionary advantage. Cool stream, godless brothers and sisters. Hello. God is the substance and origin of consciousness. Okay. How do we know that? There are no supreme saviors, not God, nor Caesar, nor tribune. It's kind of looking like that. It's kind of looking like it's a whole nothing potato in terms of gods. It's just, and that's the thing. It's like, I'm sorry, the evidence just does not suggest a God. It just doesn't. It's not the greatest thing. It's not the most fun thing, but trying to find. I ran out of screenshots of comments, so I'm trying to scroll through comments to see if I can find something else to talk about. Maybe I can just ramble to fill the silence. Yes, God killed millions, but He loved all of them. Or like when people say all the babies, all the children and babies whose lives He took. I'm like, well, all the babies, because it's easy to say, well, God wiped out these civilizations or this planet because they were evil, they were sinful, they were awful. Look at all these terrible things they were doing. What was the 1-year-old doing? Were there no babies or like little kids in these civilizations, toddlers, running around? Like, at what age do you kill your first innocent human? Like in these civilizations, it's like a rite of passage. Like they hand you a knife when you come out the womb. Like, what did the kids and the babies do to deserve it? Or they would have been corrupt. They had no chance. So you're just not even going to give them a chance. Okay, so like, and people go so far as to say, well, it's good that God took the lives of these babies and children because took them before they could sin, so they get to go to heaven. You're justifying murdering kids. You're justifying murdering kids because it stops. We all sin. We all sin. Like, careful where you go down that trail if you're justifying that, because we all sin. So, by that logic, you could say any baby dying is good because that's just not a road we want to go down. It's people who end up sitting here justifying such terrible things, It's like, I mean, at least they admit that it's there. I guess there are people who will straight up say, "Well, that's not in the Bible." Is whatever. Read your Bibles, but people are sitting here defending genocide, defending child abuse, slavery, misogyny, and defending this God who is cool with these things. It's just bad. What are you doing? Physics is pointing us. How so? The problem of evil is not necessarily an argument for atheism, rather is an argument about the nature of a deity. The solution can just as logically be that God is evil. I agree. You wouldn't be against abortion either. You wouldn't be against abortion either since you believe that life at conception thing. Yeah. All those unborn babies just got to go straight to heaven. They're living it up with Jesus now. This is a hard one. You don't accept sin or evil, do you? I accept that there's bad things that people do and that happen. I don't support the concept of sin, at least not as presented in the Bible. I accept it as a word that's used across different cultures and religions to say bad thing. The sins, the bad things that we've done. It's something that's not unique to Christianity. So yeah, I mean, I believe in those things, just not in the concept that you say. Who defines good? Who defines bad? We've kind of figured out good and bad as we've evolved with morals and ethics, as we learned how to deal with one another. We've learned what helps people, what harms people, what helps a society, and we've evolved to work together. We can't explain morality without God. And I would agree. There's no, I don't think there is an objective morality, but we've kind of figured it out for the most part. Not perfect, but we've figured it out. It does not seem like a God is necessary for it. What about Gaza? Wow, you brothers of mine will try to find any reason not to believe. And do you know why? It's because you have no eternal hope yet. I don't know what that means. And that's a comment, not a chat, so I can't even ask for clarification. I'm not trying to find. I'm not trying to find reasons to not believe in a God. I'm trying to find reasons to believe in a God and finding those reasons to be insufficient. That's the problem. People's morals are different. I bet some people's morals are aligned with murder is good and stuff, you know? Yeah, but as a majority, we can tell that murder is bad. Taking someone's life, ending that life, is arguably the worst thing you can do to someone. And it's also, there's an overall do unto others as you would have done unto you kind of rule, which I understand is mentioned in the Bible, and that's kind of something that they get right. It's, I don't want to get robbed or murdered. You don't want to get robbed or murdered, probably. So wouldn't it make sense if we created and or supported a society where theft and murder were illegal and criminalized and punished? I understand, because there is no objective morality. I don't believe there's an objective morality, especially if there's not a God. Although we could get we could get, we could say that there's no objective morality regardless, because if there is a God, then it's just that God's subjective morality, which I think is a cheap argument, but it's one worth mentioning. Yeah, it does get messy. I agree. What are your thoughts on spirituality as opposed to religion? I think it's a lot better. I think it's a lot better. A priori, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, you're just kind of saying stuff. I don't understand what you're saying. You're just kind of saying words. And some deities out of religion. And I think definitely the more closer you get to religion and like organization, it can get messy. But if it's just like spirituality, you know, just good vibes or whatever, you know, I think it's definitely better. We humans can take anything and make it bad, so I'm sure there's a way that you can make something bad, but it definitely gets better when you kind of get away from, especially the established religions. You brought up the Eithifro dilemma. Did I? You know how you get more viewers in the chat? You know how you can get more viewers in the chat room? How's that? If you're looking for a reason to believe in God but are still coming up empty, then God is not done with you. You are still seeking. Your heart is not completely hardened yet. Good. Then I guess it's in God's hands now. Surely I shall be saved. Surely. A priori, I really don't know. I'm really trying to like follow what you're saying and like respond. I've ignored a lot of your comments because you're just saying like sentences and words, and I don't know. I'm sorry. We go to war to protect loved ones, and vengeance is created on the opposite side, which is how humans can't understand one another. Fair. Fair. Because sometimes what someone is doing that they believe is right could be wrong to someone else, or could be objectively wrong, if there is an objective morality, or could be as close to objectively wrong as we can get without an objective lawgiver. I am nearing an hour, so it is about time for me to get off. I have seen Cliff. I'm not really impressed with him. I'm gonna be honest with you. I can't even pronounce it, and that's my fault. Euthyphro is the philosophical dilemma that moral good is true in itself, or as part of God. Okay. Deism, do I have views on deism, pantheism, and panentheism? I forget what panentheism is. You might refresh me on that. Yeah, I mean, I will say, just kind of going back to my previous response, I like it more when there's just like, when it's just focused on like spirituality and stuff, or when it's not this God who's promoting slavery telling us what to do, or commanding us, that's when you get away from that stuff. So there can be good ones, and I think deism, I like to point out that it's a little bit more of an honest take with gods, because it's at least acknowledging that the god's not doing anything. It's at least acknowledging that the god is not interacting with the planet, at least not as far as we can tell. Panentheism is similar to pantheism, but it suggests that God is within and also beyond the universe. The God is within and also beyond the universe. Yes. Yes. I do think I remember that. Yeah, I mean, they're cool ideas. I still don't have any reason to believe in any such gods, any, different ones, not just the theistic ones, but deistic, pantheistic, anything like that. They're definitely interesting concepts to explore. I'm not diving into them too much because I try to keep this about an hour, so I'm not trying to get too deep into anything. I think there's historical accounts in the Bible, several, just like there are historical accounts of George Washington and stuff. I typically view the Bible as more historical fiction. It's like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer is a great example. Abraham Lincoln existed, and I'm told in the movie, I haven't seen it, but I'm told in the movie that they followed some events in his life, some stuff that happened. He was just fighting vampires the whole time. I don't think Abraham Lincoln was actually fighting vampires, but that doesn't mean that he didn't exist. That doesn't mean that these things didn't happen. So it's taking history and weaving in fictional elements. So it could be that, just spouting out a random example with no, I'm not like saying anything that we have evidence for, I'm just spitting something out. It could be that there was this group of people called the Israelites who did these things, who moved from this place to this place, who conquered these nations and who warred with these nations and all this stuff. And then you might just weave in and that God was leading them, and this stuff was happening with this God, and they lost this because they did this with this God, and they won this because they were following this God, you know. Um, so yeah, it does seem like there's some historical accuracies in the Bible, but that does not support the overall, especially not the supernatural aspects of the text. I got a feeling like this is not a normal day for you, like you got a headache or something, like your voice is not as usual. In these lives, usually talking for an hour kind of takes its toll. Um, I'm also just really stuffy right now and whatnot, but yeah, especially towards the end of these live streams, I'm not used to talking this much, like anywhere. Like it even happens at work. I'm the lead of a department. Sometimes I have to train new employees. At the end of the day, when I've spent a whole like 8 hours explaining the job to somebody else, I sound the same. I'm not a talker. I'm really not, if you could believe it. If someone dies, do they become a ghost? It's a great question. I don't know. I don't have any reason to believe it. Uh, but maybe. Who really knows? But I am out of time. So thank you all for being here, for commenting. It was a good stream. You know, you guys really helped engage, um, which helps me because it's better when I'm not. I mean, I came in like, I'll read some comments. I got through my saved comments in like 20 minutes. So, and then I had some other stuff that I wanted to talk to. There was like an extra like 10 to 15 minutes. Uh, so like, I don't leave me alone. It's great when people come and engage in the chat, because I have something to engage with and I can talk for an hour. So thank you, truly, for any and all support. I'm a random nobody on the internet. I don't have any impressive credentials or anything like that. I'm a dude. I'm just kind of here, you know? So the fact that anyone stops to take even a second out of their day to watch me means a lot. So thank you all for being here and for your support, and I hope you all have an amazing night. I usually do these streams every Tuesday, sometime after 9 o'clock. It's honestly, I put my daughter down and then have to take care of some stuff around the house and set things up, and then sit down and psych myself up for the live stream because I'm shy and introverted and I'm scared, even though I love doing these streams. Um, it's a weird battle that I do. Uh, so sometime after 9 p.m. Central Standard Time is usually when I do these lives on Tuesday nights. So maybe we'll see you again. But thank you so much for joining this one. I hope you all have an amazing night, day, life.